Forge Gang! I am still a hard man! Let's go! So, I understand that I live in a very immature and unprepared and very infantile society, a culture that where things that to mass production and mass consumerism. I live in a culture that caters to mass consumption and mass consumerism, where things such as famines, things of the past that probably are going to be happening again in the not too distant future, things like mass famines and epidemics were actually quite a norm in the past, but have now supposedly been eradicated. You know, I understand that in a society where you have people who are not exposed to that are not really exposed that much to natural disasters, to wars, and to, things that were the norm in the ancient world, the Middle Ages, and even in modern times up until relatively recently. A society that has mass consumerism, that engages and is just all acquainted with mass hedonism, mass dysphoria, mass hedonism, and nihilism, and postmodernism, that it's hard to really, in such a unprepared, pessimist, just a very vegetated mass consumerist society, that people that grow up in these kind of societies under these kind of norms don't really comprehend the full-on consequences of doing unnatural things to their body parts, if you will. But when you do unnatural things to natural things, it leads to unnatural side effects. It leads to unnatural detrimental effects. It's all the norm, and it's just very common. But let's talk about poison. You put poison in your body. Okay, it is made up of chemicals that are not natural for your body to consume. Your body has developed, it has grown, and it has evolved. The cell tissue has evolved in such a way that it cannot consume those chemicals. Chemicals like lead, gallium, zinc, like stuff like mercury. Well, those things are made of chemical compounds, compounds and molecular structures that your body cannot digest. If you eat paper, paper comes from the pulp out of tree bark. Okay, you consume that, it's unedible. There's no benefit for your body to eat tree pulp. There's nothing that is nutritional about consuming paper or eating the lead from the tip of a pencil. It's an unnatural substance. It's aside, at least with the lead, the pencil lead, it's not It is not made of anything that is nutritional or of a nutritional value to your body. So when you consume inorganic, unnatural things, minerals, rocks, potassium nitrate, or you breathe unnatural gases into your lungs, I'm not talking about weed, okay? I'm not talking about weed or nothing like that. I'm talking about unnatural gases. You inhale that, it's going to have a detriment to your health, a detriment to your life. It's fatal. It's bad for your health. It's going to cause unnatural side effects to you. So, having said that and using that as an example, I'm going to talk about a very forbidden subject. And I have to be careful with the words I use on YouTube because it's YouTube, just because it's YouTube and it's the internet, and people are infantile. People that grow up in developed first world countries are infantile, have an infantile mindset, and they don't understand the consequences of things. I want to point out that sexual organs for either sex was designed, evolved, whatever you want to say, created, evolved for a very specific function and for a precise purpose. And the main reason why there are sexual organs is for the reproduction. It makes more people. It creates more people. And so when that is misused, it can lead to detrimental side effects. When you do unnatural things with your sexual organs, it causes unnatural side effects. And that is just a scientific fact. It is a scientifically provable fact. It is a very logically and very reasonable thing to say that if you consume something that is inorganic and poisonous to you, it is not going to be beneficial for you to consume that. When you do certain actions that are not conducive to actually properly conducive to overall benefits for you, then it can cause side effects. It leads to very bad things that can happen from that. So when you, likewise, when, if you put your hand in boiling hot water, okay, you put your hand in boiling hot water on a stove, it's going to burn your skin. It's going to burn your tissue. It's going to burn your hand. So when you take your sexual parts, your sexual body parts, and you do unnatural things with that for purposes that are not conducive to what those things were for, or the purpose of what those things are for, likewise, it's going to cause unnatural side effects to happen. There are consequences to actions. There is always a consequence. There is always a cause and effect for, not for everything, but there is a cause and effect. Bad decisions and bad behaviors, faulty and misguided and misread behavior leads to bad things happening as a result. And doing unnatural things to your sexual organs leads to very bad side effects and bad consequences thereafter. I'm not going to go into a lot of unnecessary detail and rhetoric because it's just going to cause unnecessary trouble. But like, my point is, if you do unnatural stuff, unnatural stimulations, unnatural arousals with natural things that were intended for something else, intended to do something such as make more people, give life to more humans, to more people, or lead to the birth of more people, and you do unnatural arousals with that, it leads to bad side effects. It leads to unnatural things to happen. So, there is a certain disease from the 1980s that was that came out. I'm not going to say what it was because it's YouTube. It's YouTube. What can I say? But if you look at the spread of certain contagions in the 1980s in cities, usually in cities and in urban places, and you see the statistics. Just look at the obituaries and the funerals. Look at the statistics. You see the unnatural causes of what doing unnatural things to natural organs can do. Okay? It is a fact, and it is not hate-filled in any way. It is not hateful to state facts. It is a fact that unnatural eating habits cause obesity. It causes overweight. It causes nutritional depletion. It does unnatural things. When you do things with your body parts that are not what they were supposed to be intended for, likewise, it causes unnatural things to happen as a result. And in a society that is full of a lack of responsibility, a lack of serious adult-minded thinking, and just completely unaware, a society that has not been exposed to mass epidemics, mass famines, where everything is fairly easily gotten, mass consumerism and postmodernism, and just this no nuclear families, no groundedness in a nuclear family or a strong culture, like a strong kind of, I guess, God-fearing culture, or a strong culture that values the home, values the family, values the betterment of society, that values community, values like social cohesion, and is not so easily taken into nihilism and postmodernism and mass hedonism and just all sorts of various degeneracies, because there is no actual there's no moral outlook that can hold it back. No one is saying no to this. Not enough people are saying no, don't do that. It can cause negative consequences and bad side effects and can lead to problems in the society. It could actually cause someone to Hezekiah themselves. It can cause very bad things to happen. Okay? It really amazes me, and I'm actually kind of bewildered, that there is so much honesty about bad eating habits, detrimental eating habits, and mass obesity, but there is a lack of incentive to really understand, doing unnatural things to natural organs, to natural body parts, and doing unnatural things that can lead to unnatural side effects. And this is what happens when there is no family unit. There is no societal cohesion. And more importantly, there is no moral incentive or pushback against it. So, when you live in a very mass hedonistic society that is only more concerned about personal pleasure and disunity and just basically buying stuff, getting as much stuff as possible and owning it, and just buying pop culture things, giving into pop culture celebrities and pop culture icons, and a society that isn't accustomed to preparation, long-term deterrent, long-term preparation for like famines and disease and stuff. These kind of hedonistic sexual deviations happen. They happen, and it causes very bad things. It leads to very bad side effects. So if you just look at the 1980s and you look up and you do research of a certain disease that spread in the 1980s and actually essayed a large number of a certain demographic, which I am not going to state here on YouTube. This is scientifically proven. When you do unnatural stuff to your body parts, it causes unnatural consequences and unnatural side effects. So Rick Perry says that he is a hard man. And Rick Perry says, hard men assemble. Rick Perry says that he likes the brass plate on the wall. He had a similar one that depicts the Cistercian heraldry. Awesome. Is this from like the Middle Ages? Is this like or is this like a display of like something from the Middle Ages? Rick Perry says British telephone box too nice. Yeah. I need to tell you the story of how I got that sometime. But it would kind of be getting off topic. But yeah. I have more brass plates like that too. Let's see here. Yeah, how do you like it? Pretty cool, huh? Here, I'll give you a close-up of it. There you go. There's the plate. All right, let's see here. I am in Jaffa, infertile, can't produce more people. Are you really telling the truth, Rick Perry, or are you just making excuses for yourself? Are you only making excuses because of low self-esteem or some kind of a delusional, warped, introverted mindset that you might have? Kind of need to think about it. Try to be consistent and honest. Be honest and consistent and be concise. Rick Perry says that he loves the Lord and has the Christian cross. Rick Perry says, sometimes I consider that Warhammer may be clairvoyant. Let's see here. Rick Perry says that his life strategy has always hinged on giving himself sexually in order to acquire a reasonable fascismal of said family. I think you're just making up excuses for yourself to try to cover up for some kind of inadequacies and some kind of uncomfortableness that you feel. You seem to be making excuses for yourself. I find it interesting how you defend the Marquise de Sade, but also hate Friedrich Nietzsche. Friedrich Nietzsche was actually less hedonistic than the Marquis de Sade was. And that's also, by the way, your sex your sex coworkers are not your family. Just letting you know. Rick Perry says, pretty old. Bought from an antique shop. You'll have to tell me about it sometime. Ghost of Cletus says, hello, Warhammer. Hard. Rick Perry gives the okie dokie hand sign. Rick Perry says that he is genuinely infertile. Well, I don't know what you mean by infertile or infertile. Not sure what that means, but if you're an actual eunuch, then you would not have any kind of sexual arousal whatsoever. Okay? Eunuchs generally do not have any kind of inclination or any kind of desire or arousal whatsoever. And clearly you do. It's very clear that you do have, some sexual arousal. Rick Perry says that he has spuffed in the fadges of so many women over the years, so yes, he is definitely infertile. Well, if you've had it with women, then there's no way that you could be a genuine eunuch. Okay, you cannot be a eunuch and also do women. Or guys, for that matter. It doesn't matter if it's men or women or asexuals or gender non-binary or whatever thing under the sun that you can think of. That's not a eunuch. Rick Perry says that his boyfriends and girlfriends certainly have been like a family to him. He is only ever engaged in long-term quasi-relationships. Infertile is not the same thing as a eunuch. Well, if you cannot have kids, then I understand. There's just people that cannot have kids. You have never said that you are a eunuch. It is me, Forge Warhammer, that says that. Well, you said that you were infertile. Okay. Yeah, you cannot take your sexual organs. You cannot take your sexual body parts and do unnatural things with it because it will lead to unnatural side effects. That is just the way that things are. Ghost of Cletus says that of sick Rick is infertile, that's a blessing from God to the rest of humanity. Rick Perry says that his sperm basically doesn't work. Well, if you're having sex with women and guys, then it sounds to me like your sperm works just fine to me. You just can't have any kids with your sperm. Ghost of Clytus says, if. Rick Perry says, probably ghost. Yeah, I mean, I don't understand how being egocentric about your quasi-familiar relationships does you any kind of justice for your position overall, or how that would do any kind of justice overall for what your mission as being a victim or claiming to be a victim would be. How can you go on an egotistical kind of maniacal trip about how many sexual partners you've been with and then also try to claim to be a victim of heteronormality? It just doesn't work. You can't claim that, you've been with so many partners and then also claim that you're a victim at the same time. If you're able to, of your own free volition, of your own free choice, to be able and go out and have sex with all these women and guys or people, then you clearly have not been marginalized or victimized as a homosexual or a bisexual. You have clearly not been marginalized by mainstream society or by so-called patriarchal heteronormality. If that is the case, then it sounds like you've had the freedom to have your way in personal choices most of your adult life. So you can't really claim to be a victim as well. That's just not possible. Rick Perry says that who says that you're egotistical? I'm just merely pointing out what I observe. That's just merely it. Rick Perry says that his body count is huge, to be fair, and he is rather arrogant about it, to be TBH. Yeah, dude. Look, when you do unnatural things with your mouth, if you eat unnatural inorganic compounds or you consume poisons, it's going to cause detrimental things. If you touch things that you shouldn't touch with your fingers or any part of your body, be it your toes, your feet, your hands, your face, your shoulders, anything that you do with your body that is unnatural, it's going to cause unnatural side effects. Sexual reproductive organs are no different. If you do unnatural things with your sexual organs, it's going to cause detrimental, bad, and unnatural things to happen. It's going to cause unnatural things. And the reason why those unnatural, detrimental things happen is because you did something that body part was not meant to be done, was not meant or intended for you to do with it. So when you do something that is not the biological imperative of that thing that you were born with, it's obviously going to cause an unnatural causality or an unnatural side effect to happen. I back up my claims with the diseases that spread in the 1980s and the early 1990s and the high fatalities that it led to. I can't pronounce it, but it begins with an A and it ends with a D. Or it begins with an H and it ends with a V. And so that's how I back up my claims of that. Rick Perry says that rectal cancer is a concern, TBS. Rick Perry says that the constant presence of proteins in the rectal cavity can cause long-term problems, touches wood. You're not wrong, but I hope to escape judgment. Gives the Cistercian Catholic Christian cross. I guess that's what that's supposed to mean. Anyways, yeah, when you do unnatural things with natural stuff, or you mix natural and unnatural elements together, it causes unnatural things. The unnatural will always be the most paramount thing, because the natural organic material is the one that has the life in it, and therefore that which has no life in it will cause that which has life in it to not have life, to become that which is not alive. So mixing up natural and unnatural things causes unnatural side effects. So that's just my point. And nobody's judging you, Rick Perry. Nobody is judging you or telling you what you can or cannot do. You have free choice and free range, and you have the free choice to make your own decisions and live your life as you want, as best and as fulfilling as what you desire. Nobody's telling you otherwise. I'm just pointing out some statements and I'm just talking about unrelated random facts and statements that have nothing at all to do with your person. Nothing of what I say and nothing what I talk about or discuss has nothing at all to do with your personal choice, and personal preferences in your own individual life. So, I have been your host, Imperator of Forge, and thank you for watching, and have a good day. Just, think and, just take heed of what I say. I'm only using facts. I'm only using scientifically valid points and facts, and I'm backing it up with scientifically valuable or validated data. That's what the data says anyways. Bye for now. Stay hard!